Yeah. You're listening to Autodesk's Digital Builder Podcast, a show that inspires construction professionals to innovate and use technology to improve how they build our world. I'm Eric Thomas, and I've been working in construction for nearly a decade. And now I have the privilege to sit down with industry trailblazers to hear how they're solving construction's biggest challenges and redefining the future of the built environment. All right, welcome back to Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I am your host, Eric Thomas. We are in Washington, D.C., and if you're watching and not listening right now, you can see I'm in an incredible location right now. We are at the National Building Museum, and I'm sitting next to the Executive Director and President of the National Building Museum, Aileen Fuchs. Aileen, thank you so much for letting us join you in this space and learn a bit more about the history of the museum. It's a real privilege to be here, and I'm having a great day, I have to say.
Oh my gosh, Eric, it's our pleasure, our privilege. I'm so happy we finally made this happen. This is exactly where y'all should be to film this and be enjoying us and see what we're doing here. Welcome to my house. What can I say?
It's a very cool house, to say the least. And I know our audio listeners are exhausted when I say this, but head over to YouTube and check this out now. I don't know if we'll ever film in a location as incredible as where I'm sitting right now. So
do it.
Just an utter privilege and opportunity. But I want to talk about this location a little bit and understand the history of the museum. How did this place come to be? How did we end up with the National Building Museum? I'm a construction nerd, so I think it's awesome, but give me some of the background. Like, how the heck did this happen? Because it's incredible.
Yeah, it really is incredible, and I agree. It's nothing like being here and experiencing this, the awe and the scale and the beauty, but you can really get a good sense of pictures. We are seated right next to the largest interior Corinthian columns in the world right now, right? The building itself was built in the 1880s at a time when Washington, D.C. was really kind of forming itself, the seat of our federal government, and we were coming out of the Civil War, and we have so many soldiers in need of a new thing called a pension. So this was built as the Pension Bureau, and Montgomery Meigs was both the engineer and the architect, and clearly inspired by Italian architecture.
I can tell.
And somehow, hard to believe that he got this design, this level of vacant cubic square feet approved by the federal government to make this beautiful, beautiful building. And one of the things that's interesting about the design intent is, even when it was being built, the federal government was recognizing the need for a big space for big, federal, beautiful, grand events. And so I think one of the most interesting historic pictures is also the inaugural ball of Grover Cleveland, right? There's a tarp put over the museum, because it's the building, I should say, because it's not even completed yet. And so that's something that's like, if you ask any Washingtonian today, like, not only are we the National Building Museum, we are one of the most beautiful spaces to host and have and celebrate events. And that's by design intent, by who we are. And we are proud to have hosted inaugural balls for almost every single president. Yeah.
It's an incredible history, and what a wild trajectory from coming from being a pension building.
Right.
And I couldn't imagine, just like, obviously you get to have your office in the space. You're very fortunate there, but just to come to work here. And I think somebody told me when we were kind of doing initial tour, there were cubicles all over in this open grand area here, which, like, could you imagine having your cube in between these two just incredible pillars and hanging out, and that's your view every day coming to work?
I know that those pictures are great too. At some point it was like court down here. I mean, all these different uses, right, as they're trying to figure out what to do with this grandiose space. And then, in the 1970s and so, people came together and were like, we need to save and amplify and do something amazing with this building. And then the National Building Museum was then chartered by Congress.
Really?
That is one of the most exciting things that motivates me every single day. And we are chartered by Congress to be our nation's museum for the building trades, and I interpret that as to be the museum for how we will design and build this country. And it's absolutely motivating and exciting. 2050 will be the 50th year of the museum. And so we have it's a huge weight. It's a huge responsibility. We're moving forward, and this is the time, I think. So it's an incredible institution.
And there's so much happening in the built world right now.
Yeah.
And so what a cool moment to have the privilege to showcase both what's happened in a historical sense within the realm of the AEC industry, but also have an opportunity to look forward and really consider, where are we going, where we can make an impact. I mean, everybody's being more environmentally conscious. The technology is changing. There's so much to talk about. I mean, obviously, I'm a big nerd, so I could go for 10 hours on this point, but it's just a really cool place to bring all of that together. And having a place that looks this stunning also, I think, just really bumps the desirability of hanging out here, but also the credibility of the space. Like this is fantastic.
Absolutely. It's what brought me to the museum. I always, say I'm a lifelong New Yorker that was never going to move to Washington, D.C. And here I am. And here I happily and excitedly am. When I was thinking about this position, I said to myself, wait a minute, we're at the influx of a crisis of climate, of equity, of public health, and literally how we design and build our world around us is fundamental to how we are going to transform American life and how American life is transforming us at this time. And I think it's not just industry professionals, but it's a wider audience. It's more people who look around them and understand how the design and build of their world has amplified or their life or not, or has restricted them. And that level of being able to, at the museum, we convene industry professionals across every vertical of the built environment, and we are able to really tell the most pressing stories that make people understand and look at the built world around them in a very different way. When we opened our visitor center, we did a polling of does the built environment affect your life? And people are like, no, not really. Okay, do you live in a house? Have you ever been on the subway? Do you ride on a road? And so it's our job to really break down that vocabulary to make people understand how the built world affects them, their communities, their lives. And I think that's never been more relevant than it is right now. And I think this is the decade for the museum, and it's our privilege and our honor to be able to be this platform for the industry to reach more people.
I love the point you're making here, because every person in the world has a relationship with the built environment, but they don't think about it that way. And I think this is a really cool opportunity to bring folks in who don't have the nerdy perspective that I do, where I go, oh God, I talk about this all day long and I love it and I'm excited about it, and say, hey, the decisions that are being made across the world right now have such an impact on the way we work, the way we play, the way we live, the sustainability of the environment. And as all the technology moves forward and our visibility and understanding of how the construction industry impacts everything, I mean, what a great chance to expand that visibility beyond all the people that are doing the building, because they're also the ones that are out there voting and influencing who's making a lot of these decisions too. And so it's just a cool space to bring everybody together.
Exactly. I mean, I think a lot of people just sort of almost look at the built world as inevitable, or that it was just always there or always will be there. And you don't think about all the specific choices that have deep impact on your life. It's that fundamental. And we have the opportunity to engage people at all ages of that. And we also have the opportunity to inspire the next generation of innovative design thinkers and builders who are really going to be the ones who are really taking on the mantle with as technology is rapidly changing, to really build and design differently. We have so much incredible opportunity and responsibility, I think, as the National Building Museum, to really make those stories relevant. And how you make things relevant is by just really telling just good storytelling. Yes, we all care about the data and the stats, and you specifically, of course, care about that, and we want to make those types of decisions. But as a museum, we like to take all that information and transform it into something that makes somebody really leave the museum and go out and look at their built world within a new lens, new eyes, fresh perspective. So it's an incredible opportunity.
I'd love to understand more about how all of this comes together in this space. And so I know you don't come from construction personally, but it's really cool that you're at the helm of this. Where do you get your insight? How do you make decisions on the exhibits and the areas that you focus on as a team and all the hard work that your team does? How does that come together?
It starts with a really strong vision and an understanding of where and how we think we have impact. The built world, the built environment is so huge. It's everything, right? You can go so many different directions, and so we at the very top level try to focus it to say that we care about engaging and educating and inspire people to understand what the built world is and how it impacts their lives and their communities. Don't undervalue wonder as we sit in this wondrous space.
I don't know how you could.
Yeah, I mean, that sense of wonder, of awe, of scale, of joy is somehow, sometimes really what makes somebody get that first connection or want to connect or want to understand more. We have an incredible education team. The legacy of the museum's education has been formative in many careers, and it continues to really inspire people. And a curatorial team, and our head of exhibitions, who's been here for 25 years, has been one of the first people on the cutting edge. We were doing shows about green space, before people were using the term green, and now things are changing rapidly. And, we have such a deep stakeholdership through our trustees, through our members, through our partners. We be this kind of center of national dialogue, right, around some of the most pressing issues that are affecting all kind of Americans in the way they're thinking about the way the world is designed to build. And we're also a physical destination then for people who want to come here and experience innovation and experience wonder and understand what's driving the industry.
Yeah. And we're at an interesting crux right now where a lot of building needs to be done. A lot of facilities need to be renovated, maintained, and we can follow the status quo, but there's a tremendous opportunity to step back and say, how can we be better? How can we pick better materials? How can we use better methodologies? And it's just really refreshing to hear that you have such a deep bench of folks that you can go to get their perspective and understand, okay, what are the challenges you're facing? Are you in horizontal construction? Are you building some massive vertical projects? What are we doing with mega projects today, which always go over budget and always go over schedule? Like all of these choices today, they matter. And I love how this showcases and highlights it in a way for somebody who, as I mentioned a moment ago, doesn't have the nerdy perspective that I might have, where I want to talk about this. And I'm really interested to hear, tell me about the typical visitor, like who comes through these doors and comes and enjoys and understands the space, and, what's their response, especially if they don't have that background and don't have that experience in the built world like you and I do right now.
Yeah. Well, like you do.
You're in it now.
I always joke. I mean, I'm an undergrad theater major. What on earth entitlement do I have to run this museum? But again, I'd pull out some of the things that you said about making choices, about choice and process, and the museum is really always been into showing also how the power of making mistakes and all of those things that everybody can sort of relate to. But to address your question about visitorship, I always think about this. When I first came here, someone made the comment to me, "Oh, my family and my firm adore the National Building Museum." And I was like, that's it. That's so interesting, right? Whereas like that this is someone who is saying, "Oh, this is a destination for my children and also equally an incredible destination for my professional realm of network."
And what wildly different audiences between those two.
Exactly. But that's the strength of the museum. On the one hand, and it's also it's in the visitor experience of there's not one person whose jaw doesn't drop when they walk in this door. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's a collective experience you can have no matter where you are in your association with building industries. It's just a powerful, powerful place. And that reminds us of the power of place. And so that hits everybody. There's also so many people in the Washington, Virginia, Maryland area who tell me my child learned to walk here. There's just the sense of community that we built here and that people grew up at the Building Museum and is a powerful part of who we serve. And also we are a powerful player in Washington, D.C.'s downtown community. We're under this moment of downtown revitalization. We serve not just our regional visitors, but because we're Washington State, because we're the nation's capital, we serve everybody. And we want to be a powerful destination for that. On the other side of that, our thought leadership and the programming and convening power that we have means that we serve a professional audience, an industry audience, architects, engineers, developers, urban planners, materials folks, construction management. My goal, I would be so happy if every major to minor firm across the AEC industry felt that they were compelled and inspired to have association with the museum because they see it as we are your museum. That is what we are doing. And I would say the third level to that, and we know that it's very sort of bland to say a general audience, so I'm not going to say that, but it's culture seekers. People, we do really cool here. Am I allowed to say?
You just did.
Okay. We do really cool I mean, last summer we broke the world record for the highest domino tower ever built. The year before that we had man on wire, Philippe Petit walking a tightrope across the museum. They were going to do some more amazing stuff. We also want to do that. And the design side of things, we're kind of cutting edge in the things that we're doing there as well. And so we have the opportunity to really kind of cast a wide net, even though we know those are sort of like our some three buckets for us. Yeah.
I can really attest to the sense of wonderment walking into the space too, because like we looked at photos. I looked at a million photos because I was really excited. I was like, oh my gosh, like we're going to film here. This is beautiful. And like Jenny Reagan, who's somewhere over there right now, one of my colleagues is helping us work on the podcast. We walked in and it was just like, oh,
right.
oh, and the magnitude is really hard to qualify, but it's so exciting that you can bring all of this together. And I'd love it if you could click down a little bit deeper and walk me through the experience as a visitor too. So I appreciate the lens into who comes. And of course, if you're watching right now, you can see there's some dramatic things to my immediate left, which is incredible. But like, how do you think about this space and the way people move through it and interact with it? What goes through your head as you're kind of making those choices for the space and the people who come through here?
Yeah, creating a great, clear, inspiring, fun visitor experience is always top of mind for us. And so we have the advantage, obviously, of walking into a jaw-dropping space. So right then and there, you have people go, oh my gosh, where is this? I want to learn more. We opened a brand new visitor center about 3.5 years ago, and the visitor center is really important for people to come through because there's 2 gallery spaces in there that we think give people sort of the language to understand their experience here. Because again, people are coming in, they're like, the building museum, is it about this building? Is this building so important? Am I learning just about a building? And we're like, we want to expand, like we're learning about the built environment, which in my mind is also an insider term, honestly.
It is.
Like we get so used to it, but we're like, no, we're talking about the places you live and work and play and who built them and how you use them and how it's going to affect your life. And we kind of give people that vocabulary to then go and experience the institution, which is 2 floors of gallery spaces where we're going to constantly sort of hit you with different experiences in design, in build, in thought-provoking, in something that's relevant. Right now, if you're a family, you're going to come in and you're going to go to the exhibit called Building Stories, which is all about the built environment through the lens of children's literature. And it's darling and it's amazing. And it's not just for children because as our curator had said, you're never too old. You never outgrow your favorite children's stories. And it's an incredible look at that. And then you're going to go upstairs to Brick City and you're going to see 39 architectural wonders of the world built out of Legos. And again, not just for kids, right? I see a lot of grown-ups sitting in there playing with Legos, having fun.
We had a Lego wall or a built city at Autodesk University a couple of years ago. That was a huge hit.
Yes.
So I'm sure that's a favorite for everybody.
Perfect. And then if you're a design enthusiast, you're going to go up and you're going to see the Frank Lloyd Wright exhibition. And then you're going to walk around the corner and you're going to see Capital Brutalism, which we just extended to June 30th because it's been so wildly popular. We're trying to create a great experience for all those audiences. Yeah.
Are there any particular exhibits right now or anything that has happened recently that you just think are incredibly cool that you'd like to nerd out about a little bit? I mean, I'm excited about everything in here and I haven't had time to go in and check everything out to this degree that I'd want to, but like, is there anything top of mind for you outside of what you've already mentioned?
Yeah, sure. I would be remiss not to mention our Notre Dame exhibition that was made possible through the technology of Autodesk, actually. And I think that's how we started creating even a stronger relationship. That was an incredible exhibition. If you can picture, for the people listening, we use this incredible technology and these pads to kind of show the creation, the fire, and the reconstruction of Notre Dame in a truly immersive experience. Using BIM technology. I always say this, that I brought 2 6-year-olds and 2 76-year-olds to that exhibition. Literally, my parents and my children, and everybody loved it. And it was just incredible. And I think it's an amazing example of how the National Building Museum, right, that Notre Dame couldn't be a more notable religious institution, a building. And then we're using technology to talk about design and build choices and what happens in disasters. And it was really inspiring and moving and both technically interesting and emotionally interesting for wide audiences. That's an incredible recent exhibition. We just opened an exhibit we're calling Visible Vault. And that is the first time that the National Building Museum is bringing parts of our collection to the public. And so one of the things I think maybe people don't realize is that we are, as a museum, we are a collecting institution. And so what do we collect at National Building Museum? It's so much that we could, but we have so many incredible things, so many highlights, including the largest architectural toy collection in the world. And,
That's cool.
and souvenir building collection and our American brick collection. So many interesting pieces with incredible stories that really tell America's design and build heritage. And so that we just opened to the public, and it's a beautiful, moving, exciting, funky place to walk through. So we're really excited about that and making programming really bring that to life.
I saw some old erector sets from like the 50s and 60s, and I had to laugh because I got my dad's old erector set when I was a kid. And it was one of the ones that's up in the box there. I walked, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen this in so long. And it was so cool because it was all the old real metal parts and pieces.
Yes.
And I remember building cars and bridges and all this stuff.
Yes.
And it was so exciting. I hadn't thought about that in years.
Exactly.
And so it's so cool to see it up there. And so I'm excited to hear a bit more about it when we go walk around.
Exactly. There's
there.
like that nostalgia. And then you'll see the things that didn't do so well, like the mini jigsaw, like actual like working like saw for children that really didn't take off. So.
Yeah, we lose a finger or two and we
Exactly.
decide, well, maybe this one's marketed to the wrong audience.
Right.
That's wild. Looking retrospectively at some of those choices, especially before all the safety regulations we have today with our technology.
Exactly.
It's going to be fun to take a peek at that.
Yep.
Is there anything else that comes top of mind? I mean, I'm appreciative of the Notre Dame exhibit. I am thankful that the connection to Autodesk kind of grew there, especially with your relationship with Jim Lynch and him, suggesting initially, I think it was like a year ago, we first started talking about doing this. I'm so happy to just be here through his, guidance and bringing the opportunity to life.
Oh, Jim's the best. Jim's absolutely incredible. And it's been such an exciting partnership with Autodesk. Construction innovation is top of mind for the museum and thinking about all the ways that we want to bring that experientially to our visitors as we think through our exhibition planning over the next couple of years. It's incredible to have Autodesk thinking about that with us, and what are the things that we can do to engage more people in understanding what the construction industry, and also just inspiring people more. I mean, I always, I'm talking about education a lot, but, to be clear, I always say we're never going to be a training facility, right? But we are an important point along a timeline of career awareness, and something that powerfully can happen here can spark you to think about maybe a career option. I mean, maybe you're not even there yet in your architect, but think about, well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to do that. And I think the construction industry needs that more than ever right now as we're playing the long game with a labor crisis there. I think that I'd love to see us to continue to really play a part there.
I mean, we're battling a very challenging perception issue with the construction industry right now. And I understand where it came from. I mean, there was a long window where everybody was told, you have to go to college, and why on earth would you want to work in the trades? And it's such a frustrating narrative to hear because there's so much opportunity in both the trades and outside of the trades in the construction world. Incredibly high-paying jobs.
Yes.
You can get apprenticeships that will pay you to get trained, and then you have a union job afterwards that's going to have a career for the rest of your life. Yes. And what a testament to skilled craftsmen in trades than the space that we're sitting right now. There is so much talent and skill for folks who learn how to build, whether they're putting masonry down and doing something very straightforward for just a standard tenant structure, or they have the privilege to build a museum or do something with a more interesting architectural flair. And those people have tremendous skills, and whether they went to college or otherwise to get to the place that they are, we need to make sure people know about that. And I love that the museum's doing a great job in contributing to that perception, all the way down from somebody who's 6, and like you said, up to somebody who's in their 70s.
Yes.
It's really cool.
I mean, the busts up there, I don't know if you had a chance to look at those.
Somebody pointed, I didn't even see them. There's so much to take in this building.
Those busts are meant to represent at the time the 7 trades, right? The building trades of in America. And so it is in our DNA, but I could nerd out on this all day because it's so exciting. I think Visible Vault that I mentioned before, we have the tool collection you're going to freak out about. It's amazing. We're connecting the dots between that history and that heritage to what are people using today. Some of these same tools, right? And in other places, totally completely innovating to a different way of thinking and using, but we're bringing in, like, we have a partnership with the International Masonry Institute, for example. And like, what are the skilled trades, and what are that also then need to work differently with architects, with developers, with designers. We, as the museum, it's such an interesting place to be because we're such a powerfully net neutral, big tent, well-intended place that we get to hear about the siloing effect through so many of these industries that need to work differently together. And that goes along, hand in hand with trades as well. There needs to be more education and different thinking around how those pieces come together to really advance effective, efficient, sustainable design methodology. It's an exciting time.
Yeah. It's going to be cool to look at some of the tools too, because one of the craziest things about the construction industry is a lot of what's happening today, and for good reason, has been done the same way for 100, 200, 300 years. But we're at a crux now where the technology development and the needs of the industry, as far as labor challenges, material shortages, environmental concerns, all of these new differing factors, like, it's okay that we've been building the same way for 100 years, but we need to step back and look at these tools that we're using and the approaches and the processes and think, okay, how can we do this a little bit different to make it a little bit more efficient, or decrease the operating costs for the facilities, or all of these different factors in play. And like, I'm so excited right now because I'm geeking out, but like, what a better place to facilitate some of those conversations than giving somebody an opportunity to really walk through where we've come and where we're headed, which actually tees up my next question very nicely. Okay. Is there anything you can give us a little bit of a teaser on, or something that's coming in the fall or the summer that folks who are listening should know is on the way, that, we don't want to give up all the details, but anything you can share that's in the not too distant future would be cool to hear about.
I would love to tee up some of the things that we're focused on. And I think one of the things that we feel really, really passionate about is the future of urban American life, and really what we are calling our Future Cities Initiative. And that is us, just the museum, looking at and listening deeply to our partners, into private industry, into the concerns of the public sector, into watching trends change, to understanding aging demographics and rapid urbanization, and going, this is the greatest reimagining of American urban life since World War II. There are so many regional specificities, but every city, every downtown, having a shared experience, in some realm, a shared crisis of what to do with their space. How are people going to live and work and play differently when you are in some circumstances of you don't need to be physically near your work anymore? That's different when you have commercial vacancies and properties that aren't going to easily convert to housing, but housing is desperately, desperately needed. What can we do to tell that American story right now, and to bring in the players and the changers, the policy, private industry, materials, all the folks who are going to really reimagine a thriving, equitable, exciting, accessible life for more and more Americans? How's that going to change? What does that mean? So we have an initiative that we're kicking off in the fall of this year. There will be an exhibition called Coming Together that we're doing, and it's just about American downtowns. And the reason it's called Coming Together is because there's an optimistic view to our lens here.
There has to be.
There has to be. Yes, thank you. Yes, I think there's so much urban doom loop, and there's so many reasons that people cite to all the reasons people don't need to come together anymore. But no, we're human beings. Yeah. We need to. What are the reasons you come together? Whether it be to live, to play, to collaborate, to have a vibrant life, to have your children be educated. There are so many reasons why we need to really think through what a thriving downtown can look like. And so we're putting together an incredible exhibition that I think is going to be super, super exciting. And so we're looking forward to that in the fall. And then we're also thinking a lot about next year, 2026, which is the semi-quincentennial of our country. I'm just showing off saying the word semi-quincentennial. That just rolls off the tongue.
That's a word I would avoid on here because I wouldn't do it right.
And so, in that, as people are thinking through the first 250 years of our country, we'd like to think about the next 250 and how that relates to how we're going to design and build our cities and our suburban and rural environments to meet the challenges of the next 250 years.
This is such a cool, and I love the optimistic framework here, because I always consider all these challenges opportunities. And I know that's not easy to do, especially when folks are in the weeds and maybe you're behind schedule. Maybe you don't have enough staff for your project. And there are so many challenges to building right now, but also in the way that we're using our spaces. And what a cool opportunity for us to really have a moment to step back and go, what's changed? What's changed about our communities? What's changed about the ways that we use our spaces? What are the expectations and the needs? And how does something that was built 20 years ago, 40, 68, 100 years ago, how do we adapt that to today without just knocking everything down?
Exactly.
And your point about all the housing needs that we have right now, I'm empathetic of everybody saying, okay, we have all this mixed use, let's turn it into housing. On its face value, that's a great idea. But when you get into how the MEP functions and all of the HVAC and how this building and the envelope and everything was designed, a lot of work has to go in to create a space that's actually usable for residential. And so there's a lot of work to do, but we have to be thoughtful and we all have to do this together. This isn't a one company. This isn't a one museum. This isn't a one person. This is like, we all have to step back and go, what are we going to do to really support all the needs of the world as the population grows, our workforce ages, we're having trouble finding the amount of people to do the work that needs to be done, much less revitalizing everything else on top of it. Like, there's a lot of challenges, but amidst that, a ton of opportunity.
I'm glad you actually pulled out the housing comment, because that's kind of what was the tipping point for us. We did a symposium around housing affordability, and we asked the question, what do communities lose when housing becomes unaffordable? And we brought experts in from across the country, from across different students and all different applications, and we just had such a robust conversation. And it's one of the areas we started really strengthening our relationship with AARP, for example, who is looking at, wait a minute, 2034 is the first time that more older Americans are going to be living in urban environments than rural ever. We need to fundamentally change the way people walk down the sidewalk. I mean, everything, right? And so that has been a driver. What's the most fundamental thing? Your home, where you live, and we know there's not enough housing. There's not enough affordable housing to both to buy and to build, right? And so being able to really foster those conversations and ask the questions and sort of push for solutions, and also to really underscore like that civic participation piece for people who have nothing to do with industry, but to understand the ways in which they can plug in to understand and to influence and to participate. It's really exciting.
I love that, because like, even if you don't care about BIM or even know what BIM is, or any of these things that I get excited about every day, we're talking about the community that people live in and the community people work in, and the choices that we're making now are just so critically important. And so I love how this is a path for folks to get involved, or at least just think about that and look around these halls and say, where have we been? Where are we going?
Yes.
And I'd love to understand, how can people get involved? Either as a visitor of the museum, or if you're looking for partners and they're, somebody's from a big GC, like, Tell me everything. How do you get involved?
Yes, Big Ten. Everybody come on down. But absolutely. I mean, there's definitely tiers. I would point to become a member. I mean, first of all, of course, the first point, visit, come to a program virtually or in person, come check out our exhibitions, come see what we're doing this summer, some really fun stuff. But also, we have individual members, we have family members, we have corporate members. And then, at our higher levels, then we also have an incredible, as a museum, we have a board of directors, we have trustees that represent some of the biggest giants of industry. And what's so special is that having that layer and input of content, subject matter expertise at that level is formative for us. And so, when it comes to, if someone's interested in future cities, if you're listening and you're doing, great work in that space, you're interested in that space, we want to talk to you. We have different opportunities to join advisory councils, to join roundtables. We're doing Future Fridays, where we're going to call together conversations. We do things called director industry roundtables, where we have C-suite conversations. We have open and closed door conversations. There are so many ways to bring your expertise and to bring your support to the national story we're going to tell about the things that you pour your heart into every day. We would love more people to get involved, and please do.
I love the open door policy as far as the influence folks can have. And it's one of the privileges for me in the job that I have now, and in speaking to all these people and understanding how we're getting work done, whether we're in the United States or if I'm talking to somebody in Australia or India or New Zealand, there's shared challenges across the board, and we have so much we can learn from each other. And so it's just a really cool, opportune moment. Is there a certain website or a section of your website that folks should go and hunt down to, find a way to reach out, or are they sending smoke signals up into the air?
Yes, please look for the bat signal. Our website, very easy. And so National Building Museum is NBM. So we're just www.nbm.org, and you can look at visit if you're looking to visit, and you can look at join if you're looking for certain memberships, and you'll fairly easily be able to find someone to talk to. We'd be really, really excited to have more conversations.
Perfect. We'll make sure to put a link to that in the show description as well, so somebody can jump straight into there if you're listening or watching. Aileen, I've got one final question for you. It's my favorite question I ask everybody.
Oh, boy.
What is one tool that you use on every project you're working on, regardless of what that project is? And that doesn't have to tie directly to construction.
Well, I've said this word before, but I do mean this authentically. Optimism. And I think, does that count as a question? Can I
think
as
so,
an answer?
Yeah. I take a very optimistic lens on digital builders, so I love it. Okay. I think it's a great answer.
But I think it's super important if you are leading a project. It's very, very easy so how do you operationalize optimism, right? It's very, very easy to get waylaid in the inevitable delays and the inevitable pivots, but you need to constantly champion the progress over perfection. Really make people understand at the end of the day, make everybody see the big picture of the why. And I think it's it's on leaders to continue to really pull that out for people. Nobody works harder than when you really can see the why of what you're doing. So I think any worthy project needs that.
That's such a impactful leadership trait as well. And people can tell when it's authentic as well.
Absolutely.
When the leader's genuinely excited, and it's obviously just not pretending just for the sake of it, but also having the real conversations when something is hard.
Yes.
But even amidst all that, as we were talking about earlier, it can be challenging, and there are challenges, and that's all fair. But we can still be optimistic about the outcome, because what do we have if we aren't? There's so much to be said about that. Even when we're having our worst days, there's still a reason to come to work and look at, what we're building, what we're doing, how we're impacting the world.
Yep.
What a better way to cheer up, I suppose, when you step out of your office and look at this, even if you're, having a downer of a day. But either way, I love that answer. That's a really cool one. So thank you for sharing it. Well, Aileen, again, thank you so much for the opportunity to film episodes here in the National Building Museum. I was sincere when I told you this earlier. This is a highlight of my career. I don't know if we're going to be able to top this as far as visually stunning location, guests, conversations we're having. This is just so dang cool. So thank you again for the opportunity and for your time. I know you're a very busy person. It's a chaotic day, but we're having fun down here. So
yeah,
I
think the answer is clear here. We need to have a podcast studio for you in situ, in-house at the National Building Museum. That's the next step, obviously.
I'm all for it. I'll send some emails to see if we can figure it out.
Let's do it.
Well, everybody out there listening, I'm sure you figured this out by now, but I am your host, Eric Thomas. If you want to check out old episodes of the show, or again, if you're just listening on the audio version and you want to check out this unbelievable space we're in, make sure you head out to the Autodesk Construction Cloud YouTube channel. Our entire backlog is there, so you can check all that out. Of course, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the other fun things. If you want to say hi to me, if you have any suggestions for a show or a topic or a guest, I'm easy to find. I'm the only Eric Thomas that works at Autodesk, and you should just shoot me a message on LinkedIn. Aside from that, thank you again for the opportunity. This has been a wonderful experience. And until the next time, goodbye.